From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to end the separation of children from their parents. The order requires that immigrant families be detained together when they are caught entering the country illegally, although it was not immediately clear for how long. It also moves parents with children to the front of the line for immigration proceedings. The order does not end a zero-tolerance policy that calls for criminal prosecutions of immigrants crossing the border illegally.
So we're keeping families together, and this will solve that problem. At the same time, we are keeping a very powerful border, and it continues to be a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance for people that enter our country illegally.
Our correspondent in the U.S., Alina Duarte, has more on the damaging effects family separations have been having.
2,342 children had been separated from their parents after crossing the southern U.S. border since early May, according to the Department of Homeland Security, as part of a new immigration strategy by the Trump administration. In April, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions ordered prosecutors along the border to adopt immediately a zero-tolerance policy for illegal border crossing that included prosecuting parents traveling with their children, as well as people who subsequently attempt to request asylum. According to the Texas Civil Rights Project, which has been able to speak with detained adults, multiple parents reported that they were separated from their children and not given any information about where the children would go. The organization also said that in some cases the children were taken away under the pretense that they would be getting a bath. A journalist of Associated Press saw hundreds of children waiting in a series of cages created by metal fencing. One cage had 20 children inside. In this context, the United States has quit the United Nations Human Rights Council. After more than a year of warnings, the Trump administration has announced it, citing hypocrisy and anti-Israel via Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley announced it in a joint statement yesterday.
Thank you, Alina, for that report. More news now. The government of Barbados has canceled the visa requirement for Haitian nationals entering the country. The Home Affairs Minister Edmund Hinkson said that Haiti, being a member of the Caribbean community since 2002, should be treated equally, and this unfair practice must stop at once. He added that his ministry is in the process of preparing a white paper on immigration with a view to deepening the integration movement and Haiti's relationship with the rest of the region.
If Haiti is a member of CARICOM and the Treaty of Chagarama speaks towards non-discrimination and equal treatment, how can you have put on visa requirements on Haitians? I mean, why do we do this to our own people?
In Colombia, the Senate has postponed the vote on the bill for the special jurisdiction for peace requested by President-elect Duque. Following the Senate's decision, current President Juan Manuel Santos called for an extraordinary session in Congress to extend the debate until the Senate makes a move. The jurisdiction for peace is the mechanism of transitional justice created as part of the peace agreement to judge militants linked to the country's international conflict. Our correspondent, Paula Fernandez, has more.
There is a crucial topic in the country, and it is the regulation of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace, or GAP. On one side, the President Juan Manuel Santos called on the Congress to hold a debate on the regulations for the Special Peace Jurisdiction, and said that if these are not approved in the Congress, he will call extra meetings to get them adopted. On the other hand, President-elect Iván Duque made a separate call. The supporters of Álvaro Uribe have openly opposed the regulation of the special peace jurisdiction, and they are also opposed to other aspects of implementing the peace agreement. The President-elect called for a delay to the debates in the Congress. What has been said in Congress is that there are differences between the legal interpretations of the regulations. On the other hand, the Interior Ministry has insisted that there is a transitional article, which means that the JAP can begin to create its own regulations. While this is debated in the Congress, there are concerns over what will happen to the peace process with the arrival of Iván Duque, who is soon to take power.
Thank you, Paola, for your information. Iván Duque's party, the Democratic Center, confirmed their rejection of the peace agreements and the ongoing peace talks with the ELN. Analysts, as well as members of the Congress, say that peace in Colombia may be in danger after Duque takes office.
Members of the Democratic Center Party expressed their opinions regarding the call made by Pablo Beltrán, chief negotiator of the ELN, to continue the dialogue with the government of Iván Duque.
We hope to continue our talks with the new government and for the peace agreements to be respected.
We can't allow the ELN to do whatever they want as they sit at a negotiation table, asking for even more things than the FARC did.
For analysts, peace talks are in danger following Iván Duque's election. Regardless of the peaceful intentions of the guerrilla group.
This is terrible for peace. We're moving backwards, and what's worse is that they will throw away an entire process that took a lot of work and years to develop. The ELN is at its best point in terms of negotiations with the government.
The newly elected president, as well as Álvaro Uribe supporters, have expressed a rejection of the peace agreements and the special jurisdiction for peace.
We are against that jurisdiction. We consider it only useful for the FARC and criminal guerrillas, not for civilians and the national armed forces.
Senators say that in spite of what the right-wing groups think, the jurisdiction should be enforced to defend peace.
8 million Colombians voted for continued peace. We will mobilize to protect and enforce the peace agreements. We think that this country must not go backwards after all the lives that have already been saved.
Meanwhile, President Juan Manuel Santos stated that if the special jurisdiction for peace is not approved on Wednesday, he will call for an extraordinary session of Congress.
The International Monetary Fund's Board of Directors has approved a 50 billion credit line for Argentina, the largest loan in the institution's history.
First of all, I would say that we embrace this support with great humility and great attention to the domestic situation of all the people of Argentina. Number two, the Argentine authorities have designed, conceived, and take full ownership of the program of reforms that is being proposed. Number three, we have clearly negotiated with the authorities to fully understand the ramifications of their plan, to fully appreciate that it has every chance to be a success if it is well implemented. And it is in that spirit of partnership and cooperation that we have worked together, as I said, on the basis of a program that is theirs and that we believe, if implemented, will be a success.
The move is a huge political risk for right-wing President Mauricio Macri, as many Argentinians blame IMF-imposed austerity policies for exacerbating a 2001-2002 economic crisis, which devastated the country. Argentina was only saved when then-President Néstor Kirchner engaged the IMF in a standoff, in which he refused to back down and saw him default on national loan repayments, leading the IMF to accept defeat. During the following period, the country went through considerable growth and prosperity. However, contrary to his predecessor's achievements, Macri's government has pledged to accelerate its efforts to reduce the budget deficit as part of the standby agreement. Women's movements are debating the decriminalization of abortion before Venezuela's Commission on Women and Gender of the National Constituent Assembly. Mobilizations around the National Constituent Assembly had three main proposals: sexual education beginning in childhood, free access to contraceptives, and safe, free, and legal abortion. The issue of legal abortion, historically considered to be a taboo, has recently become a point of debate.
Today, many women and men have come together to represent feminist Venezuela. In our proposal, we emphasize the transformations of women's sexual and reproductive rights. These changes are necessary for feminists in Venezuela, which is something that Hugo Chavez wanted. This is why today we present to you our work, and we ask you to recognize our rights in the Magna Carta of our nation.
Venezuela has denounced the decision by the United States to abruptly withdraw from the United Nations Human Rights Council and disrespected the international community. The Foreign Ministry said the U.S. couldn't stand the scrutiny of an international democratic body. The statement says that as a positive consequence, the Council will be able to act without pressure and extortion from the main violator of human rights. In Mexico, genital violence leaves an undeniable mark on the daily life and in the current electoral process. More than 100 politicians have been killed since the beginning of the campaign period last October.
Valentina had to learn Spanish in order to represent herself in the Mexican courts. 16 years after she was violated by members of the army, the courts issued a conviction to the aggressors. She's just one of the millions of victims of violence that has not received a just response from the courts and legal entities.
The government never believed me, never took my case of assault by military members seriously. The only thing that I can show, is that I always told the truth.
Human rights experts point out that the responsibility for the escalation of violence is partly down to a security strategy initiated in 2006 under the leadership of the former president Felipe Calderón.
The army was deployed throughout the country under the premise of the war against narco-trafficking, and that has increased the frequency of cases of military abuse, which often go unpunished.
The general and open violence also impacts the political class. Since October 2017 to today, more than 100 candidates running in the popular election and municipal level have been violently murdered.
65% of these 113 murders have been committed by armed groups. There is likely participation of crime organizations.
Violence is a key topic in candidate speeches. The conservative candidate, Ricardo Anaya, in second place in the polls, promises to try and convict the current president for fraud scandals and conflicts of interest. But he does not mention more controversial cases, such as the disappeared students of Ayotzinapa or the government repression of Atenco.
I propose a special prosecutor investigate President Enrique Peña Nieto and his role in the White House and the other scandals of the 6-year period, and if the results find him guilty, he will be incarcerated.
Since the beginning of the narco war, more than 200,000 violent deaths and 37,000 disappearances have been registered throughout the country. The majority of these crimes go unpunished.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's been another emotional day for the teams competing at the World Cup in Russia. Let's go to our Jose Daniel Lopez, who has all the latest information.
Thank you, Steffi, and welcome to our Telesur Russia 2018 special World Cup coverage. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez, and here are today's headlines. We start with the results from today's games. In Group A, Uruguay defeated Saudi Arabia 1-0 in the city of Rostov-on-Don. Luis Suarez scored a goal in the 23rd minute, qualifying his team to the knockout stage. Uruguay is the first Latin American team to qualify for the round of 16. And Uruguayan fans celebrated the victory.
The game was intense, and that's how we always feel during Uruguay games. I think that Uruguay will improve. This game was not easy. They defended a lot, and we always struggle in this kind of games. Uruguay always struggled to score in football.
It was a difficult game, a tight one. The most important thing was to win and qualify, and we won. But the playoff is the thing that is most important.
In Group B, Portugal beat Morocco 1-0 in Moscow. Real Madrid striker Cristiano Ronaldo scored a header in the beginning of the first half to give Portugal the victory. Our correspondent in Moscow, Hansel Oro, has the reactions of the fans after the game.
Greetings. I'm in the Luzhniki Stadium where Portugal faced Morocco. Portugal beat Morocco thanks to a goal of Cristiano Ronaldo. Regardless, the Moroccan expectations remained high through the game because they were fighting the whole time to find their goal. Morocco had previously lost against Iran, but the Moroccan fans are still active in the party of the World Cup and the FIFA Fan Fest. I want you to have a look at the Moroccan fans that are here supporting. Despite the outcome of the games against Iran and Portugal, they are still very happy to be here, and they are still cheering for their country.
With today's goal, Cristiano Ronaldo has now scored more international goals than any other European player. In total, he has scored 85 goals in international matches.
I'm very happy. The most important thing was to win the game, to get the 3 points, because we know if we lost, we could have been out. We knew that Morocco would be trying very hard. It was a surprise because they really got the start. They were really going through a lot of moves, and they were very strong. I managed to strike a goal and to make those 3 points, so I'm very happy, and it was beautiful to me.
Ronaldo is so far the top striker in Russia's World Cup with 4 goals, followed by Denis Cheryshev from Russia and Diego Costa from Spain with 3 goals each. And after a rough game, Spain beat Iran 1-0 in the city of Kazan. Diego Costa scored a goal in the second half to seal the victory for Spain. Brazilian supporters are among the largest group of fans at the World Cup, but Mexico may increase its presence in the coming days after the team beat Germany in the first match.
Mexico is among the 4 Latin American countries with the highest number of bought tickets for the 2018 Russia World Cup. According to FIFA, the leading country is Brazil, with 65,000 tickets. However, the victory of Mexico against Germany would motivate an increase in the number of Mexican fans' arrivals.
It's a tournament that Latin America is going to win. The World Cup is going to be Mexican. All Latin Americans will see it.
Mexico has a great team, but we will beat them. If the final is Brazil-Mexico, we will win it.
Mexico football fans bought 40,000 tickets out of the more than 200,000 sold in Latin America. Russian authorities think that the presence of Mexican fans will grow, especially after its win 1-0 against Germany.
We made history because we beat the world champion, and now we're going for this World Cup.
Mexico won this one deservedly, but Germany is still in this. It's only the first game of the group, guys. Easy. Calm down. Calm down. It's still early.
It was a good game. Mexico made a really good performance. So, this time it was better. Germany maybe will come as a second out of this group, and then perhaps we'll meet again in semi-final or wherever. Let's see.
The streets and squares of Moscow were filled with Mexican colors. Latin American and Russian fans celebrated the victory.
It was the best game ever. I don't have words to describe what happened. It was a difficult game, but we won, and that's what matters.
Great game, great victory. I really enjoy it.
Experts assure that the debut of Mexico's national team ended the winning streak of the current champions. The Germans hadn't lost in their first game since the World Cup played in Italy in 1990.
Now let's take a look at the group points. After today's win, Uruguay and Russia share the top position of Group A with 6 points, qualifying to the next round. Egypt and Saudi Arabia are eliminated from the tournament with 0 points. Portugal and Spain are at the top of Group B with 4 points each. Iran is in the third position with 3 points. And with no points, Morocco has been eliminated from the tournament. Tomorrow, Lionel Messi and Argentina will try to obtain their first victory facing Croatia. Peru will face France, and Denmark will play against Australia. And that's all for today's Telesur Russia 2018 headlines. Don't miss our exclusive show, De la Mano del 10, the World Cup according to Maradona. Only on Telesur English. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Back to you, Steffi.
Thank you, Jose Daniel, for your information. More stories now. Social organizations in the Dominican Republic are setting up an encampment to demand transparency in the corruption cases of the Brazilian company Odebrecht.
The Marcha Verde movement set a camp in front of the Supreme Court of Justice to demand the names of those responsible in the Odebrecht case.
For resistance, dignity, and hope, Marcha Verde is the answer to the farce that are the Dominican government's actions in the Odebrecht case. What is happening in our country shows us that there is a real mob that is taking power of the state.
These protests started after the Attorney General excluded members from his party in the Odebrecht case.
We are proceeding with archiving the files of these 8 accused people without any evidence. There is no process. We can mix the files of people with clear evidence against those that don't have enough.
In the encampment, citizens sign up to join those who are in the resistance. They sleep, eat, and live in front of the country's Supreme Court building.
After this joke, after this offense, we react by setting this encampment as a space of resistance, a space of encounter, a space for thinking.
Since June 8th, the resistance camp has been active every day and night to make sure law will be served and those responsible condemned in the biggest case of corruption in the Dominican Republic's history.
At least 6 people are dead and 1 teenager has been injured after a shooting in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. According to residents, an army operation began at around 9:30 a.m. local time, lasting over 3 hours. Law enforcement personnel flying a helicopter hovered over the Mari complex and began shooting in the direction of schoolhouses and streets. The operation was a joint action of the civil police and the Brazilian army. Residents say more people may have been injured. Rio de Janeiro has been under military occupation since February. Former President Lula da Silva is celebrating the resolution of innocence of the Workers' Party leader and Senator Gleisi Hoffmann. From victory to victory, let us rebuild this country and restore hope in democracy, justice, and equality, Lula wrote from his detention center. The former pre-candidate for presidency also denounced the role of the global network in spreading falsehoods. Dozens of protesters gathered outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London to mark the 6th anniversary since WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was given political asylum there. Protesters demanded the release of Assange and said providing information is not a crime. The 46-year-old entered the embassy evading an arrest over sexual assault, charges by the Swedish government, which were later dropped. But he still faces espionage charges and a criminal investigation by the US government over the release of thousands of classified documents.
The truth is that Julian Assange has never been charged with anything. The allegations that were made against him of sexual assault were highly dubious, to say the least, and more than a year ago, Sweden actually dropped any investigation into these allegations. The United Nations ruled 3 years ago that Julian was being held unreasonably and illegally, and yet still the British authorities refused to let him go. And only in February, a British judge ruled that if Julian tries to leave the embassy, he will be subject to arrest for breach of bail conditions.
Now for a look at stories from around the world.
The U.S. ambassador to the United States, Nikki Haley, announced that the United States is to withdraw from the UN Council on Human Rights, citing a chronic bias against Israel. The U.S. wanted to reform the UN Council to meet the demands of the Trump administration, but failed to do so. Haley at the State Department slammed Russia, China, Cuba, and Egypt for preventing U.S. efforts to reform the Council. The mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, has responded with outrage after learning that his city hosted 239 immigrant children separated at the U.S.-Mexico border without his knowledge, including a 9-month-old baby. Speaking at a press conference in front of the Cayuga Center, a day center for children, he said that the federal government deliberately withheld information from him and criticized them for lack of transparency.
Our message to the federal government is simple. Stop this right now. Stop this broken, inhumane policy right now. And come clean with the truth. Who are these children? How many are they? Where are they? What is happening here? How is it possible that none of us knew there were 239 kids right here in our own city? How is the federal government holding back that information from the people of this city and holding back the help that these kids could need?
Turkey's political opposition say they are being deprived of airtime due to pro-government media bias ahead of the elections on June 24th. In a study carried out by Transparency International Turkey, the country's main state-run news channel devoted 158 minutes of airtime to the president in its evening bulletins between May 4th and June 13th, nearly 3 times higher than the amount given to his nearest rival of the Republican People's Party.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.
A sign of resistance to hatred and injustice.